Hi guys, joyous Monday to you. Happy to hashtag no filter. There. Welcome to hashtag no filters. I was trying to adjust the camera and speak at the same time. Doesn't necessarily work so well. With me, Cheryl, Norris, Hopkins, Sabina is off doing her magical thing again. So we're going to have a little chat just by ourselves. So I entitled today's chat Anxious. What else is possible? And basically, I wanted to explore. For so many people on the planet right now, and at other times, there's a sense of anxiety, worry, um, maybe a feeling as if they're not in control of their lives, a sense of self doubt, wanting to have control over things. I've got another device playing, let me just turn it down. Wanting to have control over their lives and other things, and that not necessarily being very easy for them right now. So it's not as if we don't necessarily have anxiety in our day-to-day life anyway, but I really wanted to look at what's going on there. So we could call it anxiety, we could call it frustration, stress, worry. The labels don't really matter. But what is it that's going on? So I want to share a personal experience that's happening for me at the moment in the hope that that will give an indication of how it really runs through our lives and how it really feeds back to so much of how we're entrained, conditioned, programmed to behave in the world. So I have a home and a little bit of damage was done to it in the summer by a vehicle. And um, what we've basically done is kind of block off the way the vehicles come through this particular part of our home to try and make it as safe as possible whilst we come up with a more permanent solution. Now, there's options to keep it closed off. There's options to open it up to only certain types of vehicles. And what I've noticed in the last few days, it's kind of escalated because it's been closed off. This little passageway has been closed off for a few months, and people wanted to get it resolved. So there's my immediate neighbours, and there's the larger neighbourhood, and obviously us ourselves. And I've really noticed it's really pushed some buttons in that I've noticed myself go through different stages of wanting to try and control what the outcome is, of wanting a particular outcome, of even wanted to, I'm going to say, influence people in terms of where they might, what their opinion might be in terms of what they want. And so it's really uncomfortable, right, to even acknowledge that. But what's more important is that I've noticed that what it's pushing that anxiety button, that sense of feeling safe. Because what is anxiety really? Or frustration, irritation, anger, all those labels we have for emotions, but what are they really about? If we take them right back, I'm going to dare to say they're about a feeling of that we're not safe, a feeling of being unsafe. Our well-being is threatened somehow. Now, by the way, guys, I didn't put a disclaimer. Anything I share today, anything I invite you to question, to explore, it's just a possibility. It's a perspective. It's not the truth. It's me sharing some insights, some tips, maybe some tools that might open up your world a little more to give you a bit more freedom. And what I mean by freedom is basically being less and less at the effect of the world around us. I having more ease, more peace, more calm, more fun, more joy, whatever things that create a sense of like being able to go through the world without being pulled around like a puppet on a string, and also then be able to create more of what you would like in your life, whilst allowing others to do the same for themselves too. So for so many of us, there's a push-pull on everybody else. So let's go back to the example of me and my home. It's really easy because everybody that's involved has their own perspective on it. So for some people, they're in agreement with an idea of keeping this traffic flow area closed because it feels safer. Others are saying keep it open because it makes it easier to go from my part of where I live to another part of the development where we live. Some are like, we don't really care. We kind of want you to be secure, but we're quite relaxed about it. It doesn't affect us directly. So there's all these different perspectives, and we respond based on how much of a threat we perceive it to be. So just take a little moment here and think about something that's going on in your life where you feel some sense of like disharmony, upset. And just notice what it is. What story do you have about it? And what I mean about that is, what are you telling yourself is true about the situation? And that's how you justify and feel as if you have a sense of control and that you're right, they're wrong, or it could be the other way around, you're wrong, they're right. But it's a thing that keeps you off balance, off center. And we tend to have this in lots of areas of our life because guess what? This seeding, this sense of not feeling as if we have, that we're truly in charge of our lives, uh, that things happen to us or that people are the ones that create issues for us, create problems, that somebody else is feeding into what's going on in our lives. That's seeded at a really early age. You think about it as a little kid, very quickly we're being told, do this, don't do that. If you don't do that, you might get punished. If you do that, you get rewarded. So we get it from our carers, parents, extended family, whoever happens to bring you up. We get it from our schooling in terms of how we're then disciplined and or rewarded there. We get it from any social club we belong to. We get it from the political systems that govern our countries, the legal system. If you do something wrong that we don't agree with, we'll punish you. We get it from our peers attempting to fit in. We get it from the media that says, this is the right way to think. This is the true story. This is correct. These are the good people. They're the bad people. So we've been trained to look outside ourselves and constantly want to try and either appease others and or feel as if we don't really have true control of our destiny. So we try and control others to feel secure. And our nervous systems, just as one model, our nervous systems are part of our brain, our fight, flight, amygdala system. And it doesn't really matter. They're labels. There are so many ways you can look at this. I'm just trying to give you something to give some kind of context. But our bodies respond, right? If you think about something that's upsetting in your life right now, or it's causing you some kind of disharmony, you're feeling it in your body. Because if you didn't have that physiological response, you probably wouldn't label it that way. So what do we label anxiety? We label it with sensations that might be a tightness in the stomach, lots of thoughts going through our head, a sense of butterflies, maybe nausea, shortness of breath. Again, it doesn't necessarily matter what the physiological labels are, but we have a sensation in our bodies that gives us that label. Conversely, you have different sensations in your body that you label as being nice feelings, being with somebody you've decided you've fallen in love with, that it's fun to be around, or eating or drinking something that makes you feel light and buzzy. It's all a physical response. And the reason I bring this out is because that's the default place we go to, is that we decide because of our body's response, it's good or it's bad, it's anxiety creating or it's joy creating, happy creating. So the first part of this I'm going to offer, right, is to say that having been set up and having our world set up in a way that teaches us always to look outside ourselves, being as if we don't have true control, true choice, true power, and that we have to try and control something or somebody else, which means we're constantly on a rope, being pulled back and forth by other people in other situations. To really get that sense of ease in your own world, whatever it is, whether it's driving to the shops and feeling irritated behind a car, whether it's whether you can or can't go out right now, whether you're worried about what's going on in your work, all those things are based on a story about we don't have the choice, or I must control, and a physiological response to that. So there's a few aspects here. There's the starting to separate out the story you're telling yourself in terms of it's good, it's bad, they're right, I'm wrong, they're wrong, I'm right, it needs to happen this way. There's the fixed idea about there being a right and wrong, which constantly keeps us on this like pulling back and forth tug of war with everything in our lives and many things and many people in our lives, situations. And there's actually dealing with the body's response to it. So when I coach people, invariably the first thing is actually just calming the body down. Because if there's that zzz going through the body, we do a knee-jerk reaction most of the time to try and shut that down. We ask somebody to do something or to stop doing something. We eat something. We go on our phones. We distract ourselves by buying something. We try and push down the body's response as the first thing. So actually starting to recognize there's a bodily response. And for some of us, we're so numb, we don't necessarily cognitively or consciously are aware of the body's response, but we feel something. And it's so quick. So the first thing is learn to slow down. The first thing, somebody's just trying to message me, take it off my screen. The first thing is learning to calm the body down. So guys, let's just take a few breaths. I don't know about you, just instantly, just normal breath. My body's already calming down. I'm feeling more relaxed. Just normal breath, not having to try and do a deep breath. And what's fascinating, because I'm now focused on my breathing, one, my speech has slowed down. Two, my brain and my head feels clearer. Three, I feel more settled. I feel like I'm all here. Because it's really interesting. When I started to go live with this, I was trying to organize the phone. I was thinking about checking the other device. I was kind of scattered. I hadn't got my body into a centered state. Hence, I tripped over my words. The delivery was quite fast. And it's such a default program. I'm somebody that's constantly looking at becoming aware of the next area of life, which is why I'm basically kind of slightly asleep or I'm triggered by stuff. So yes, I've moved massively over the 20 odd years or 40 years or whatever it is, almost 50 years I've been on the planet. And there are still areas it's like, Arr! So that breath is a really simple way. And I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, because it depends how much our system's been like, and there are many other tools. So Simon's saying, hi Simon, thanks for joining, darling. He's saying butterflies can work positively. I feel when I've gone on a first date, I felt butterflies, but it can also calm down as you get to know each other and progress through the days. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole heap of thing here. This is about the subtleties of how the body and Qigong, PJ saying Qigong can help. Absolutely, there are so many tools. So many tools. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing those. The first thing I think I'm wanting to invite people to is to actually become aware of their body. Most of us are living up here in our heads. We're churning our thoughts. We're telling ourselves, we're playing out scenarios of what might go wrong, of how we need to control the outcome. So going back to my house example, I noticed myself, because physically my house could get damaged again. It has been damaged. I found myself going through that scenario of, hi Rosie, thanks darling, thanks for joining. Just what she needs right now. Yes, talking about anxiety and how to just calm the body. What I noticed was my head was trying to tell me stories about, basically it wanted to plan to cover that corner of an eventuality. It wanted to plan to push things down a certain path. And I noticed the crazy, and the body was like tightening up in my stomach. And for most of us, we just get caught up in that. And I was like, no, this needs to stop. And it's taken me 4 or 5 days of going through this process, really seeing this play out. And it's almost as if it's come up for me to really deal with, because somebody approached me recently with another issue around their home and so on, and wanted to kind of change things, what's going on in terms of their experience. So there's nothing like facilitating, supporting, teaching, coaching somebody else when you actually have your own shit come up like right beforehand. Thank you for the hearts, darling. There's nothing like it. And I've been, having to really push myself to stay as open as I can possibly to being aware of other people's desires, of feeling uncomfortable, for example, of not being willing to maybe change my mind on something that I said I might be open to before, which might upset another neighbor. And that's really interesting because a lot of areas of my life are very much, I'll just speak and just say what needs to be said. But I suddenly realized I had to think about I didn't want to come across as being what I call a Charlie Hunt to just one person, for turning, maybe doing a U-turn or something. Even if it may be a greater contribution to more, I felt really uncomfortable about this. And this is part of the conditioning. We're taught to try and put that feeling an intensity in the body means it's wrong. So don't choose for you, choose for others. And because lots of people are doing that, I choose for you, as in, let me put you before me, or let's not upset you. Because actually, if I don't upset you, you won't get angry because you feel out of control. And remember, guys, I'm just sharing perspective here to give you more space. If it doesn't, throw it away. This is not about this is the truth. I'm just kind of being real about what I perceive is going on and what I've learned in my own life over my whole life. And I was somebody who was born with a lot of fear, anxiety in their body. I believe, without giving too much away because it concerns somebody else, but I believe that it was something that was passed on from my birth mum and some experiences she was going through when she was carrying me in her womb. So I was born with that, quite a nervous system that was quite active towards that way. And then my foster care experience, stable as it was, I was kind of left my own devices. So I didn't feel as if I necessarily had as much full support as I could have. I was loved without doubt, but I was kind of left to just do my own thing. And there were a couple of things that came along during that experience that gave me the ammunition for me to go, okay, don't rely on anybody, take charge of everything yourself. So I constantly pushed myself towards things that frightened me, that were fear creating, that were anxiety creating, to be in control of them. So my body was constantly churning, right? So I'm very familiar with that sensation in the body. But it didn't matter how much I tried to control things in terms of my own life's path and whatever I achieved, I still had this churning. So, the outside world looked as if I was doing things I was doing well, but it wasn't any more ease in my inner world. So it was like this never-ending cycle, whether it was academic achievement, whether it was what I was doing my work, or how I was in a relationship, in terms of how close I let somebody get or not. So it didn't matter. That inner world, that inner churning wasn't changing. And so I share that because, again, it's that we're so taught that it's an intellectual thing. We rationalize what's going on in our lives. No, we don't. We have a physiological response on the concept that we deem ourselves mammals. It doesn't matter, but we're an animal still. We have a physiological response to make sense of our environment. We have senses. That's what it does. It feeds through the body, through the parasympathetic system, the sympathetic system, it feeding through the vagus nerve, all these other things that we've given labels to. Doesn't matter. But the body has a response to try and make an instinctual, animalistic decision in a moment, which is great if you're about to be hit by a car or fall over. But most of us day to day aren't going through those life and death scenarios. But we have these stories about situations. So what I noticed in my house example is that I wanted to try and control all these various outcomes so it would make my body feel more calm. But actually, what that really means is that I'm allowing fear to run it. And here I am publicly just sharing that because I really feel that this is really valuable, because we're told that if we talk things through, if we look at the pros and cons, if we should be able to come to some sensible outcomes. But our bodies are running the shows. And if we don't recognize that and then start to find tools, techniques to, one, calm the body down, then we can start to look at the behavioral patterns, the belief systems we've all been taught, which is look outside ourselves. You have to conform, you have to fit in, you have to be a good girl, you have to be a good boy. You can't be a Charlie Hunt. The right and wrongness. You have to make sure everybody else is happy, or Yeah. Or conversely, it's good to just like take care of yourself and sod the rest. Any of those fixed ideas to even start to look at seeing whether they're really working. And it's not even about necessarily for those people. If people don't want to change them, that's super cool. I'm sharing this and today's chat about being anxious, anxiety, stress, whatever you want to call it, and what else is possible is for those of us that are just going, you know what? I don't want my life run by this constant feeling of, "Ugh." And our world stage currently is full of that for people. There are things happening in our world and the constant reporting on the media and the various things happening in various countries with what is currently locked down in November 2020 is pushing all those buttons in all of us. Each of us is in a situation right now where if we're getting squeezed, all our spots, all our sore tender points of anxiety, stress, fear are being pushed. And we could say, for some of us, we could say, again, we don't have choice. And yet, I'm the only one inside my body. You're the only one inside your body. And people are having different responses to what's going on in the world. Some are very, very angry, and they're going out there smashing up buildings and ranting and raving. Others are, doesn't really matter. They're enjoying time at home with their families, pretty relaxed. There's others that it's so overwhelming. They're turning to drink and alcohol. They're going to the full degree of suicide. That we're all responding in different ways. So my invitation to all of us is start to firstly become aware of what's going on in that body, to then start to go, how am I seeing the world? Because when we calm the body a little bit, then we can start to get to a space of seeing, of becoming aware of all our programming. And once we become aware of the programming or the triggers and the fixed ideas we have about things, the right and wrongness, we can then start to make different choices. Now, if you choose something that's really, really like emotive for you right now, is really up in your world, it's going to be way more challenging to go through that process with. But if you find something that's like a little bit of an irritation, it'd be a lot simpler for you to be able to take those deeper breaths, those simple breaths, and calm the body down, or whatever your version of calming the body down is. I mean, I've got a whole range of tools, skills that I've learned. So I'm using the breath as an example because it's a really simple one that everybody can do. And I have no idea what's going on for you specifically. The breath is like the simplest tool that we all have access to. In varying degrees, I get that depending on how congested our body is and our health. It can be breath, it can be stroking an animal, it can be having the sun in the face, it can be going out for a walk. But the breath is something that's with you all the time. So let's just do it again. Just need your breath. You might close your eyes because when you're starting to calm the body down, it can be very powerful to close off the distractions. The sight, the sound, sight being our primary sense for those that have sight. And let your tummies relax, guys. Let your tummy hang out. You're trying to hold it in. It stops your body natural ability to get to the depth of your stomach or your tummies. And you might have lots of noise in your brain. Just maybe focus, literally become aware of like pulling your attention into feeling your bum on the seat. And then feeling the breath coming through your nose. Notice how far it goes into your body when you breathe in. Notice the expansion of your ribs, your stomach. Notice it coming back out of your body. What feelings do you have in your legs right now? Your toes. Notice how you feel in your body. Now, if there's something that's a small irritation in your world, just grab hold of that for you right now. A small thing that you're a bit about. Nothing major. Notice how your body feels now when you think about it. Has an area of your body tightened? Like my throat's got a bit tighter. I can feel a bit of a tightness in my chest. You've thought of something and it's changed your physical response, your physiology. Take that breath. Already for me, my body's like, oh yeah, it's okay. Because when I do that breath, that gentle, easy breath, natural breath, it starts to calm down the vagus nerve, which is this lovely nerve that runs here, cheek, down your body, through your thorax, connected to all your major organs. And the slowing down of the breath, the natural rhythm, which then gets deeper and deeper and deeper, particularly if you let your stomach go, tells the body, oh, everything's fine. Your brain waves slow down. And when your brain waves slow down, it gets much easier to think and see things from a different perspective. So, for example, with my housing situation, which is a big thing, yet over the last few days I've managed to calm it down more and more and more. And there are aspects where I get triggered still, and so that's still unfolding, okay? For example, one of the things that I've really practiced is that I was doing the communication to the various people involved in getting this resolved. And then my partner got involved in the communication. And I stepped back and let him write some information to various people. And I could feel me want to really control it. But I knew that that was the fear, anxiety, wanting to take charge. And if nothing else, I am persistent at wanting to be free. So though it was incredibly intense, and my body was like, ugh, I was determined to bite my tongue as much as I could. Now, there were times during this weekend I didn't manage that at all. I spewed out my anxiety. I spoke it out to him, trying to justify why something should happen or not happen. And I could see myself doing it. So this is not about perfection, guys. There are going to be areas this is super easy to like chill out on and start to dismantle the deep thought patterns, which are really about being safe. It's really that simple. Am I going to survive? That's what it really comes back to. Am I going to survive? Am I safe? Because people could say there's other layers on top of that. Am I good enough? Will they love me? Am I lovable? But ultimately, underneath that is survival. If this doesn't happen, my survival's friend, I will die. I will be hurt. I will no longer exist. That's really what's at the base of it. Again, guys, don't take it as my truth or the truth. I said to somebody recently, you can lie to the rest of the world, but don't lie to yourself. Unless that's fun for you, in which case that's totally cool. And don't be surprised if that sense of anxiety, that sense of never feeling as if there's a sense of ease and peace in your world, or that you can't create the world you desire to have. Don't be surprised if that doesn't happen. Because if you're lying to yourself, if I lie to myself, guess what? I've got no chance of undoing the stuff, of seeing what's really going on, and then being able to develop a new way of relating to the world around me. So right now, in my housing situation, there's the potential for other people to make a choice which is different to mine. And I've chosen to allow other people to make a different choice. I'm not going to go into all the details because that's story. If I tell you story, then what I'm trying to do is to justify my choice. I'm trying to get you to understand, right? Because if you understand my viewpoint, I feel as if I've got some buddies, and if I've got buddies, then I feel safer and I feel more adjudicated. I feel more, I'm trying to find the word, I'm more convinced of my perspective that I'm on the right side, and that they're wrong. I've got more support to defend my case. So what's really interesting is how many of you love to tell and talk about what's not going well in your life, what you've decided is going wrong, what's irritating you, a particular thing that's really up in your world right now, and you tell your friends, your lover, your neighbor, your colleagues, whatever, you talk about it, and you tell them how somebody else is wrong, how somebody else is stopping you. Because what we're looking to do there, this is the thing about being real and honest with ourselves, and this is what creates more anxiety in our world, is that we're looking for somebody else outside to side with us, so we feel more secure in ourselves. Because if somebody else has a different opinion or says, well, maybe not, we start to have this wobble in our worlds, and we feel vulnerable, and we don't like those sensations. When actually they are just sensations. They're giving you feedback that something's off, or they're giving you feedback. How you label it is another thing, but they're just giving you feedback, like a little warning. Something's going on based on what's happening for you right now, based on what you think, what you've decided. So in me having these other people that are impacted to a degree around my home, having their perspective, and me keeping my mouth shut and being willing for them to have their perspectives and let them make choices that I could potentially override. I'm really testing my comfort here for my sense of physical security. And the reason I'm doing it is because I'm unwilling to be held hostage to anxiety, fear, basically, in my life. And the more I see how the world is currently being orchestrated, and how I can see it for my whole life, how there's constant pushing of whether it's policies and or media, whether it's as I said, our societal systems, most of the agenda is fear-based, constantly telling people to watch out, how this is coming, how this is going to hurt us, how this is wrong, how this is a threat. And so, hey, if it's fun to keep living that way, and as it's getting more intense right now, knock yourselves out. But what I'm seeing is that we've got an opportunity here, guys, and we're being invited to it, whether we like it or not, to really start to see where we've not questioned this before, and we've used sticky plasters, drink, food, socializing, shopping, being on our devices, working, sex, driving, as in hobbies, activities. I say driving because I used to like driving to chill me out, like calm me down back in the day. It was therapeutic for me. But we use all these mechanisms, and that's totally cool. And of course, that means we're always at the effect of the world if we're using mechanisms to try and shut something down, versus being willing to go, oh my God, look under the bonnet and go, oh, I don't want to know that something's coming out from under the bonnet. Let me just shut it down. Hopefully the steam will just stay under there. Or walking into a house and seeing mold in the wall and going, oh, I don't want to look at the mold, or a massive crack down a wall and just trying to paint over it without going out and socialize or look at our phone. Because you can paint over a crack in your house, on your walls, but the underlying structural damage it's done, or whatever's creating that crack, and the deeper the crack, the more the base, the foundation is basically unstable. You can fill it in as much as you like. You can paint over it as much as you like, with all our distraction techniques we use, which are totally fun and fabulous. And that stuff's still going to be there. The foundations, the instability of who we are, very core, is going to continue to crack open more and more and more. And every interaction, every experience is constantly testing us in terms of how stable our base is. I have a lovely analogy I use with one of my clients because it speaks to them, and it's around sailing. And if that client's watching at some stage, hey! And it's this thing. If we allow the currents, the weather, to take charge of our boat, the sails, the motor, whatever it is, to direct the, to take charge of the boat we're currently captaining, we'll get battered all over the place. The true power is the ability to know all the various aspects of understanding your sails and all the equipment and be able to direct the crew and go through that storm no matter what, in charge of the vessel. In other words, in charge of how your body is responding, no matter how intense and extreme the environment is around you, what's going on in the world, what's going on in your home, what's going on in terms of your relationships with people. Your ability to be the captain of your own vessel, your body, is the thing that's going to enable you to ride that. And if you rely on just trying to control situations around you, if we rely on trying to control situations, and everybody else is doing the same, it's like this constant tug of war. Everybody's like pulling these strings of each other. You see how off balance it is? I'm pulling you to make sure you do something I want. You're pulling me, they're pulling me to make sure I do something they want. It's just constant motion. No wonder we feel seasick, or as if we're out of control, anxious. Whereas if our ability, no matter what the weather, is to, okay, understand our body, start to quieten that body down, then start to pull on the right sail ropes to actually see what's required to change the direction of the wind. I start to change the way we see the world. And then we start to get more control of our vessel. And then actually start to see, once we've got more awareness of how we're seeing the world and starting to change that programming. And we've all been programmed and trained to behave. I mean, I'm just thinking about a couple of people I'm working with at the moment. They've had situations, invariably I work with, or have worked a lot in the past with corporate women who are incredibly brilliant. And yet they were having maybe challenges with self-doubt, challenges with particular work relationships, colleagues, wanting to take their career in a particular direction. And there's all sorts of pressures about what they should and shouldn't do around them. And they'll come and they'll be generally working very hard, workaholics, getting stressed out. And the first thing we do is calm their body down. So they're no longer in that fight-flight situation all the time. Once we've calmed their body down with some tools, then we start looking at what beliefs they have. How do they really see the world? How do they really view that relationship? What do they believe about that person, or that person believes about them? What stories do they have? What are they telling themselves they can't do and be? Have they bought into the idea that they must put others before them? Or if they upset somebody, if they do something that somebody else gets upset about, then they'll be judged, they'll be made wrong. And people don't want to be labeled bad, wrong. So we start to break that apart for them. We do that with some simple tools. And then once they've done that, they can start they've got a bit more stability. They're not rattled so much by situations. They're able to use a tool to start to change how they see a situation. They start to create a calmness in the storm. They start to captain their ship. Or create more, they start to almost put scaffolding up around their home, or whatever it is, to support the structure that's been capsizing or subsiding. And then they start to either pull something apart, take the wall down if it needs to come down, which is invariably going back and looking at things that really triggered us in our past often. There's some fundamental things that happen often in our childhood. Decisions we made. And so they start to address that, and or somewhere they made a decision about what it meant to be successful, what it meant to be have a particular role in this workplace, what it meant to be somebody who can apply for a particular job. We start to look at it. Sometimes it's most immediate stuff in terms of what they're looking at, but invariably it always ties back to that wanting to be liked, not wanting to be coming across as somebody that's unreasonable, not wanting to be judged and noticed to stand out, not wanting to be blamed, to be made feel guilty, or to be ashamed of who they are. There's like these fundamental things. We use blame to manipulate people because then we make people feel guilty. And we poke at their shame as in their fundamental wrongness. So I can blame you, which makes me feel better about myself. You're the wrong one, I'm the good guy. I can try and put guilt on you, or I internalize my own guilt. Oh, I should do this, I shouldn't do that, which again shuts me down, makes me anxious in order for you to feel better. And then if I have a true desire that others in society say is unacceptable, then I can feel a deep sense of shame, as in I'm fundamentally wrong. Or we try to shame people, to control them. So if you imagine that everybody's doing this, then of course that creates anxiety in our world and in our lives. Now, I'd love to give you loads of tools, but that's just not feasible right now. So what I'm trying to do is give you just different examples of how anxiety is endemic, it's threaded throughout every bit of our society. So the first thing is going to be starting to recognize where that is in your own life, which is such a big statement. Okay, let's chunk that down a bit. Recognize where you're telling a story, how they're wrong, how you've been wronged. Because whilst you're still in that tug, 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 there is no escape from the anxiety. And it's uncomfortable as hell. It really is. But if you want to create something different, if you would like to have less anxiety, have more ease, more peace, more calm, which may mean nothing to you, you may not even be able to get a sense of what those words mean. It may be so alien to you. You're like, I don't even know what you're saying, Cheryl. And yet there is a part of you that knows those spaces. Maybe it's when you see a rainbow. Maybe it's when you're petting a dog. Maybe when it's you're out for a walk. Whatever your version is of that. There are moments in your day and in your life where you have a sense of there's no pressure on you. Nothing's demanding anything from you. There are those moments. So they're the insights of when there is that sense of calm. Now, our bodies store a huge amount of anxiety. You know, there's years of training of fight, flight response, or freeze and fall responses. In our world. So we still hold a lot of that in our bodies and beyond our bodies. So there is a thing about sort of sloughing that off. So it's a process of cleaning it out of the body more and more and more. And invariably, say people start in one area. It could be in a particular relationship with somebody they work with. It can be, for you, it could be something your partner does. It could be something a colleague does. It could be something your neighbor does. It could be something you do within yourself, something you do and you decide you don't like about yourself. Take a little tiny thing. It could be the way you look, something really small that you wish was different. It's not a major thing. It's not like a major, I want to change my whole appearance, but it could be a tiny thing. Like, I don't know, maybe you have something silly, like you have a hair that sticks out or grey hair that you don't like, or there's a little bit of a wonk in your nose. Something that's not majorly traumatic for you, but something you're a little bit, oh, wish it was different. And notice that you've told yourself a story that you wish it was different. Well, how did you even come to that conclusion? Who told you that that's not acceptable? How do you know it needs to be different? If no one made a comment about it, if you weren't seeing a magazine saying you need to look a certain way, if you weren't comparing yourself to how somebody else looks down the street, and I'm giving a physical example just because it's easy to talk about, you'd have no concept of it needing to change. But we're taught to look outside ourselves for the perfect model of how someone needs to look in this situation or this example. So we make the fact that our nose doesn't look the same as somebody else's wrongness, particularly celebrities, right? Or people who deemed to be attractive. Your nose is just your nose. It's not right and wrong, it just is. So you can see how we self-regulate by constantly analyzing what's right and wrong. And what I noticed over my health situation this last 4 or 5 days, and so I'm using this because it was being so intense. It's been like the perfect storm for me to practice and see my own stuff. I noticed actually I was so fixated on one outcome. was like, but actually, am I fixated on that outcome because it would create the greatest outcome for everybody? Or is it because it makes me feel comfortable? And I was like, oh my God, it makes me feel comfortable. That's not to say that a particular outcome one, we'll call it, wouldn't actually be a great outcome to choose. But I'm the fixation of it for me, which has lessened a great deal over the last few days, is because I've decided it gives me a sense of of comfort basically. So let's summarize here, right? I'm not sure how much further I'll go on here, guys, because I do this work over months for somebody. You know, it could be 2-3 months on a particular thing that's going on, like a relationship with work colleagues or with neighbors or with an intimate partner, and then so the first couple of months gets the body calming down, so they've got tools to calm the body. The next couple of months is actually then changing another big trauma in their lives, another thing that's creating anxiety for them. So 4 to 6 months is often what I end up working with somebody with on something particular, and often 6 to 12 months, because then once they've calmed the body down, started to break apart the things that were triggering them and how they see the world, they then want to create what they wanted to create, as in what they'd really like to have in life. So that's the 6 to 12 month bit, right? Yeah, so give yourselves a little play task, a little home play. A little home play being something you decided is a little bit of an irritation, and just notice how you think about it. Notice the story you tell yourself or you tell others about this thing, and keep your mouth shut, which is like one of the most challenging things. This is why I say choose something that's a small irritation, something that you speak about or you comment on in your daily life. That you might be, you look in the mirror and you go, oh, look at that wrinkle, and you mention it to yourself regularly. The next time you go to do it, internally, if you're doing internal dialogue or if you're doing external, basically just tell yourself to shut up. Like, nope. And notice what happens when you do that. Notice how much ease or how challenging that might be. Notice how inside, for example, I know with me, telling myself like, no, I'm not going down this route, stop. I could feel me inside having a tantrum like a toddler. No, but I want to be right. I want to talk about it. I want to get my point of view over. I could feel me having this little tantrum. And because mine was an intense thing, I could feel it really go off. Yours might be more subtle if you choose something small. But notice how you want to justify, how you want to keep telling that same story. No, but it is true. My nose is a little bit wonky. No, your nose just is. It has a shape that might go slightly to one side. So what? So what? No. But you need to understand it is wonky. See how much you want to justify it, the rightness or the wrongness. Because when you become more neutral about it, when you can go like, I'm not going there, you actually start to tell the body things are okay. So if you think about it, every time we say that's wrong, we complain about something, we make somebody else wrong. And we all do this to varying degrees. Guys, this is not about being holier than thou, perfection, which is a judgment in itself. This is a work in progress. We are all works in progress with varying aspects of our lives. But every time we can just go, I'm not telling that story anymore. We take a breath. Even if it's like 2 seconds, even if we only have a 2-second gap from the craziness of our head going a million miles an hour, our body going wanting to reach to the cupboard to get something to eat. Even if you only stop yourself for 2 seconds and you still go to the cupboard to eat, that 2 seconds starts to pattern interrupt the behavior. Starts to show you where you're at the effect of the programming. Now you can go and find tools and skills and whatever works for you. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about how I might be able to work with you, please get in touch. I spent a lot of time exploring this. A lot of years. I think I remember feeling my first sense of fear, anxiety, as literally as a baby. I think I'm about 18 months of age on the photo that I remember having taken. And it's been, and so I had that, and so it continued. And it wasn't until my late 20s, so 20 years ago, I then started to go, this is unsustainable. I need to change what I'm doing and work out what's going on in the inside for me to still be feeling this anxiety, whatever it is. So I've been my own experiment for 20 odd years, and then I've worked, coached, taught, just shared things along the way every day. It's just a way of being for me. I'm so persistent. It's one of my qualities. I'd rather die than give up having more and more freedom, being less and less triggered by the world. And so I offer this video, this live right now, as an invitation for you to start to have a bit more of that in your own world. You're welcome, Rosie, darling. She just said thanks. And I so wish I could teach you everything I've learned in the last 22 years, or the last 49 years, my whole life. I wish I could teach you it all right now on this video. I really do. If I could just through the screen, I would. But that's bullshit. It just isn't real. And even when I work with somebody and we work together for 6 months, 12 months, they notice suddenly the initial situation they came to me for, goes from night to day, transforms, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then they suddenly realize another area of their life that's got crap in it or is uncomfortable. And they're like, oh my God, how comes I didn't see that? Or maybe they kind of say, oh my God, now this area of my life is really painful. But what was happening, the big thing they came to me with that was so creating so much anxiety in the world was what was screaming at them. So we worked on that. But the tools could then be used in other areas of life. So they now start to look at another area where they were asleep to, or it was less intense. Often say it's when we have something that's really intense in our world, it's like somebody, my analogy is, we've got a big slash in our side, we've been cut. And so it's bleeding out, it's hemorrhaging. It really hurts. And we're doing our best to sort of bandage it up, stop it, our guts falling out. A bit graphic, but that's just what comes to mind. And so we put our attention on that. And so, we try and cover up the best we can with plasters and bandages. And then when we actually start looking at what's going on, it's a bit smelly. Taking the bandages off, it's pretty smelly. Got to be honest. Might be a bit gangreney, might be pussy, depending how intense the areas of our lives. And when we start cleaning out that wound, it's not necessarily comfortable. In fact, it's not comfortable. It's damn uncomfortable. But as we clean out that wound, the wound can start to seal together. We start to use some tools that help knit together. And then eventually, that part of our body actually heals itself and closes fully. There's a little line, maybe, as life experience. Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Just saying, hopes the building stuff from home gets sorted out in the best possible way. Thank you, my darling. But once we start to clean, we close it up, we suddenly realize something's been stamping on our foot. Another situation, another part of our lives, right? Our intimate relationship, that's a classic one. People come to me for stuff that's going on in their work space, and then they might notice something that's going on in their intimate relationship, or how they feel, how they look at themselves and their own body, or how they relate to their family. It's all about relating. It's always our relationship with their work, with their own body, with other people, whether that's lovers, colleagues, family, friends. Right? It's a sense of self, relationship with self, relationship with the world outside of us through people and things. And so they start to notice that something else is really hurting, but they couldn't look at that. The foot, having something, feeling a pain in the foot wasn't evident when we were bleeding out on our side. So guys, if you start to, there's a lot in this chat, and I've gone over some of the ground a few times, because I tell you, it doesn't matter how many times sometimes I hear something, it's like the next layer. We wake up a bit more every time we hear something. We hear it the first time, and our defense mechanism. I love my speed of speech. Sometimes I get so excited, I speak too quickly, or very quickly. Our first defense mechanism comes up, which is like, keep me safe. No, I don't want to hear it. Can't be open to that idea. No. La 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 la. Or we make ourselves wrong, or we try and fix it by jumping into the next set of tools or something. So our knee-jerk reaction happens. But if we can just take a pause, which might be that breath, it might be that put a little post-it or a little note on our phone that sends an alarm off, so that if we're somebody churns in our brain, that alarm goes off in it, and we have that as an alarm which says, stop, take a breath, stop, look outside, find some peace and calm. We start to pattern interrupt that, then we can start to see what's really going on. The first thing really, I guess, actually, I said about calming the body, but actually the first part is actually just starting to recognize, start to see what's going on. So noticing that being willing, in fact, there's even more precursors to that. I say the first part, there is no first part. But as I'm speaking, actually, the first thing is actually having a desire to create something different. Because you may be really, you as in we, might be really happy with the anxiety we're feeling. We might be really happy of being able to tell our story about something that's working or not. We may be happy saying that somebody else is to blame. That might really work for us. Because on some level, it does work for us, right? It's a way of us coping. And yet, there's something in our gut, something in our heart, something in our being, something in our consciousness that says, this is not how I want to live. And it's when that chink is in there, that little crack, then it becomes a thing about starting to go, actually, I do want to create something different. I do want to feel more ease in my life. What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? It's not about the outside world. Yes, there may be things we can ask of people. Yes, they definitely contribute with their choices. But if I'm constantly looking for them to always be the ones that change, I'm at the effect of the world around me. So if it's my perspective and how my body's responding to the world, if I can be more masterful of that, then I can ask somebody from what I call a more neutral space. It's a very different thing. I can ask somebody to do something for me from a fear space, an anxious space, anxiety-led space, in which case I'm trying to push them down a path, which may not be the best path for everybody, but I'm trying to push them down a path, which really often is a path that's to suit me, not necessarily one that suits them. That's what we do. Right? I'm talking generally when I say I, me, but I'm guilty of that in some areas, as in I'm noticing it. I've noticed it with this home situation. And there's moments, this has been ongoing for a little while. So there's times I've been really chilled, like very much aware of everybody else's needs. Other times I've been like very much about my survival. And that's the thing about being honest with myself, because when I can see that, I can see when I'm being triggered, and I can clean out the next bit of area where I'm like, feeling unsafe. Because somewhere that will be wiring back to something back in my childhood or being in my mother's womb. That would be a particular aspect of my life experience that I haven't looked at, or that hasn't been triggered to that degree before. Because there's many things I've unwound and I have a great sense of ease with. But obviously this one is a part that I haven't looked at. Guys, I've just realized the time. We're almost at the top of the hour. That's insane. Thank you so much for all of those of you that have joined me live, that watch the replay. If there's anything you want to say, feel free to put a comment. If you're on YouTube, obviously you can put a comment there. If you're on Facebook, put a comment. I will pick them up. I hope there's something in here for you. There's a lot in there. And an invitation, firstly, just to see what's going on for you. Learning to calm your bodies down. Learning to interrupt the story. Take the stories out of your world. Start to see the world in a more neutral way. And then to create your future. That's a bit of a mad summary, but that's the best I'm going to be able to give you with like 20 seconds left. So guys, thanks again. Please share these videos if it's value to you, and that you think it might be of value to somebody else. I think a lot of us could really do with more support in our lives from the inside out. And I think part of being on the planet right now is that we have the ability to care for each other in a way we've never done before. So big love to you guys. Thanks so much again. Look forward to seeing you on another show. Ciao, ciao for now.